Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Gregor from Qualified AM GmbH. We just tested the global AM standard in hospitals with two fantastic case studies. One of them is University Clinic Münster, which I would say is one of those institutions which start slow with a small step. They qualified their model application. And we have a second case study where Alex is representing a scalable solution to develop an cutting device for children valves, and this qualified solution should be scaled in many other hospitals. So we have two great case studies and see how the program helps. What we will, where we're coming from. So leading surgeons are taking personal risks on daily basis in hospitals. This is reality today. Do not qualified processes and not validated processes. This is something what we would like to change. AM is still a novel manufacturing method in certain cases. We have 7 AM process categories, and some of them are at the very beginning to be considered as reproducible and safe. And as well, the expertise in hospitals to be as a manufacturer and to control is not at every hospital there. Maybe it was in the earlier times there, and it's fantastic to see that we are able to come back to those earlier times, produce on a safe and quality assured manner with such a programs. So we are changing that, and I'm handing over to Martin, which will explain his motivation behind where it comes from and why it's so important.
Thank you, Gregor. So the screen's turned off, so I have to take a glimpse on my own post. So 3D printing is something that with 3D models sometimes has some uncertainty from a regulatory aspect for the surgeon. So 3D printing itself is available at low threshold, low cost. But we as surgeons, we do need the 3D printing, and we're working in a highly experimental environment without any AM standards in the past. So let me explain that from a clinical example. So we had a patient admitting in 2021 in a wheelchair suffering from pain. His initial problem was a sarcoma in 2009, which was resected and reconstructed with preserving the left hip joint. Over the years, he developed some complication of screw and rod failure, and so he came back to the hospital for first surgery. He needed help, otherwise he would have been doomed for the rest of his life in the wheelchair. We had only one chance because he received some surgeries in the past, and we needed any available tool helping to proceed and get the challenge done. So we used the 3D model, and we combined that with, Lucas? Where is it? Oh, it's just over there. So I'm gonna make it like that. So we combined the 3D model with navigation to reconstruct the center of rotation of the healthy joint that he had. And as you can see, it worked out. So the patient is preserved from the wheelchair, and he's walking again today. So this is a very complex case, and we as surgeons, as I said, had no AM standard, doing it in a highly experimental environment. And of course, the surgeon has some questions. How about the process safety? How about the risk for the patient? How about the process of developing the model itself? So we've been left with these questions, and we were left with a question how to change that in the future.
And I would like to introduce to you another clinical case from the German Heart Center here in Berlin. And the problem we are facing is that we have 400,000 babies that are born every year with a congenital heart valve defect. One slide back, please. However, there's zero solutions available. This means they get off-label use, they get improvised solutions by the surgeons, and this leads to 3 to 5 resurgeries until they reach the adulthood. Always open heart, so it is extreme burden for the patient, for the parents, for the hospital. And this is why we have developed a solution, a GrOwnValve. A heart valve made from the patient's own tissue that shall grow within the patient. And in order to do so, we harvest the patient's own tissue in the operation room, we reshape it to a heart valve, and minimally invasively with a catheter system implant it again. And our key to success component is an AM manufactured and personalized mold that enables us to really reshape this flat two-dimensional pericardium to a three-dimensional personalized heart valve of a specific person. And this is what I'm going to be talking about.
Perfect. So our focus is as well to satisfy the requirements of the MDR, and we understand that they are very clear described actually for point of care. First of all, it's important to use state-of-the-art standards and technology. So there are process categories which are ready to be qualified. There are those which are not ready. There are standards which are ready to be implemented because they are released and ready. 13485, 52920, those standards are state-of-the-art of quality-assured production lines. Risk in design and manufacturing was and will be with additive manufacturing things to do for each point of care manufacturer, and this is something what is really hands-on. We need to understand the risks which are coming with a particular printer and process category, elaborate and discuss those risks based on the product and such a mold which is produced here or such a model which is produced here, and understand what the mitigation plan is. And this is what we did. So we analyzed the available standards and DIN ISO ASTM. They are developed in a TC261. It's a global standardization committee. There are 27 published standards, 15 plus more in development, and all of them can be used to validate and qualify based on state of the art. As well, the TC150, the medical committee for standardization, published already one additive manufacturing implant standard, and another one is in development. And those 7 process categories which I mentioned already, you see in the picture. Here you either have a standard. If there's no standard, you need an expert. If there's no expert, you need a trustful system provider which delivers all the IQ documentation with a system and knows his risks. There's a very easy to qualify things, and there's no magic about it.
So, with all that was said by Gregor, the responsibility without all of that would stay with a surgeon. So if I would like to have the model, I have to assure the quality standard or trust in what I'm doing or anybody else in my clinic is doing. So the patient has a legal claim that the model, which is individualized for his case, is safe, that the performance is safe, that it's made from a good standard, and that it represents what it should, a one-to-one scale of his pathology, because the treatment will be done with help and assistance of the model. So the MDR already gives a guidance for that, for us. And it says that we do not have a confirmation assessment procedure to run through, because we're doing it on-site in our hospital and only for our patients. So, but we do need, in any case, we do need an evaluation process for the product, for its purpose to be used, and the production. So this brings QM into focus. But there's a restriction. If we would use the model outside of our clinic, give it away to another institution or distribute or sell it, we would become a distributor, and then we would have to do the conformity assessment procedure. So in our use case, I'm running from the stage again. Okay, so our use case was not the pelvis in that case, so we decided for another use case, which is from our heart surgeons. It's an aortic arch with a pathology of a soft tissue weakness leading to a sickness called aneurysm, which could be death-threatening. And the surgeons, they ask us to have a one-to-one scale that they can take sterile to the OR, use it for pre-planning, but also to reconcile during the surgery, because the cetus, the inner part of the surgery, is very small. But he needs to find any structure that he figured out before the surgery. So he's doing some kind of tactile navigation, and he has to rely on the model. So I hand that over. As I said, it's a one-to-one scale, and it's for tactile navigation, and we need a QM system.
And what does it really mean hands-on for our mold, for example? Our mold is a medical device class 1S. Therefore, as Martin said, we have to comply with the Annex 1 of the MDR. This annex has 3 chapters, and the first chapter says we have to have a full risk management, risk assessment, evaluation, control. And chapter 2 is the functionality, the safety of this device. In our case, it's biocompatibility, sterility, and usability. And also chapter 3, proper labeling and instructions for use must be appropriate. So where do we stand right now? Within the last 2 months, with the help of qualified AM, we have successfully finished our risk assessment, built our risk management system, and we have planned all validation activities and even started. And within the next 4 months, we will finalize our validation activities. We'll have an internal audit by qualified AM, and this will really enable us to have a safe and validated environment of an AM production site at point of care at Charité.
Perfect, thank you, Alex. So how does it work? We see the standard procedure, which is always the same. There's nothing new. There's a process map, so you understand your process which you need to qualify and validate. And those process maps are already in the way to be standardized. So we develop standards for these 7 process categories, where they have a list of failure modes which potentially can happen for your medical device. And this is going to be a standard which every hospital can take and go for the application, like we have here on this picture, the mold from Alex. And based on this, how long we need, I think there were 5 meetings, each of them 2 hours, which we needed to prepare such a ready to take to the validation step risk assessment based on state-of-the-art standards. So if you have a risk assessment done, you have your control plan and risk mitigation plan in form of testing, test coupons, which are presented here even in the presentation before us, as well as quality assurance documentation and checking steps, and all the tests which are product specific. I provide only the manufacturing portion of the product in use is of course things what needs to be done additionally, and it's done elsewhere and is always done based on the existing risk know-how at the hospitals. So, but the manufacturing part is clearly standardized, scalable, and accountable. So you could put a time measure on it. You can put it into your finance plan, and it's it becomes scalable. And that's really wonderful.
Yeah, so how does this hands-on look like? Our mold risk assessment and validation steps. So what we actually did was we took the AM workflow of the 52920, which is kind of readable over there. But the first step is the manufacturability assessment and review. And in our case, this is the CT reconstruction and segmentation for a specific patient. And we have several risks, but the major risk here is that we predict the wrong size for the wrong patient. Either too small or too big. Too small means the valve will be flushed, migrated away. Too big will harm the vessel, and in either way it will not function. Therefore, we have 3-way mitigation strategy. We do a software validation. We use the clinically established and certified software Osiris, and also for each patient we use individual release checks with the 4R principle and from medical experts. The second step is the pre-processing, and in our case, this is the mold print file creation. And again, the major risk here is that we have a wrong model due to wrong geometrical features, for example, in the cut. Our mitigation strategy is that we do a software validation of our cut software, also of our slicer software, and also we print the patient ID on each part to prevent that sizes get mixed for different patients, for example. The in-processing, the actual AM process, is in our case the mold manufacturing. And here we see the major risk of lacking biocompatibility, for example. We did, to mitigate this, installation qualifications of all devices, especially the printer. And also before each print, for example, we calibrate the UV lamp to ensure the same UV intensity and mitigate the risk of uncured resin, which is toxic and harm the patient eventually. Last but not least, we have the post-processing. In our case, it's the mold finalization or manufacturing steps to really finalize it. It's removing the support structure, it's getting it sterile to sterilization. And the major risk here is that we are lacking of sterility, really. Our mitigation strategy here was that we perform an own sterilization validation. We use the method of moist heat. So our parts are safe and validated, but also the sterilization facility of Charité is certified according to 13485, so they have a working quality management system, everything is traceable, and therefore we can really ensure that their processes work according to our products as well. And by doing, breaking everything down into these sub-steps, we can really assure that our whole process chain or production chain is validated and we become a qualified AM production site.
So let's get back to our example of the use case of the aortic arch. So, after validation comes quality management, as I said. And we did the validation for the printing process with a DLP printer with a medical approved material. And quality management means at the University Hospital in Münster that we are also having, next. Takes some time. Yeah, we have some QM tools already at our hospital side, and we do have these ISO 13485. We have a risk management system, but we do not have a production-specific QMS for the 3D printing process. So the task was how to get a solution. And as Alex explained, we also used the 52920 for our process. And what are the hard facts for doing so? It's over 150 shall requirements, 21 should requirements, and we could get through that all on our own, but it would take some time. So we asked Gregor from Qualified AM to assist us, and he provided like 50 templates, and we had one employee he could manage in 2 months with only 80% of his time to get all through of this. So if you have 100%, you can even manage to get quicker through the process, but it would have taken much longer if we did it on our own. So we somehow get taste of all that, and the plan is for the future in 2024 that we transfer this master plan also to PSI, so personalized specific patient instruments with our SLS technology.
Yeah, so we see two fantastic use cases. On our hand, University Clinic Münster, which started with a step-by-step approach with a simple first QMS version of their production line, and now developing bigger goals and bigger production lines based on top of this. And we have Alex, which started with the risk assessment to create his focused validation plan based on the mold risks. Yeah. This one shows you that the full integration of the ISO ISTM 52920 to the existing quality management standard 13485, which is well known globally, exists. So all the green marked areas from the 13485 are satisfied or served by the 52920, which is wonderful because those persons which are developing the hands-on production line QMS, they are already preparing the documentation for the 13485. We are coming to the end, so thank you for listening. My purpose of my company and the service is, of course, to increase adoptability of AM, increase safety of AM at hospitals, and make it scalable to an affordable cost and time. So you can put a measure on the efforts, how long and how much effort do I need to implement a quality assurance system at hospitals. If you have questions, you want to hear more details about the standard insights, about the program, I have a booth here behind this wall. We have enough times for this 2 days to go into those details. Thank you so much. Thank you for this fantastic case studies, for your partnership work. And let's finalize that in a final conformity audit very soon on both sides and hand over to maybe here and there to a notified body, yeah, where has a third eye view on that, and then we will see how good it is really from the notified body side. I'm really looking forward to this step. Thank you.
Thank you to the three of you. Very illustrative presentations and use cases. I brought one of your models here again. There's also one question on the model. We don't have a lot of time, but maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions still. Let's start with the first one. For Article 5.5, there must not be any similar device on the market. What happens when a device becomes available? Do you have to give up your in-house device? Who likes to answer? Alexander turns around.
Yeah, there's a guidance saying that there is a guidance saying that we, if there's an equivalent available on the market, we have to do a transfer. So we should use it if we go for the way that I showed up. But in many cases that we have, it's a very complex anatomy, and the surgeon needs the model within short period of time. So there's no 8 weeks for waiting. We had one case this week and we lost the patient, though we were that quick that we could provide the model within 3 days. And these are the cases that we are heading for.
So it's very specific, so in that sense, the similarity is not there. So do such treatments have to be financed privately, or who else can afford it?
If privately means equity, then no, it's also publicly funded.
Or do insurance companies pay for such treatments?
Yes, of course. I mean, there's a DRG code. In our case, it's the hardware. This is a pauschal number of money, and this is, of course, then paid by the insurance, yes. But reimbursement is an issue, though, for stuff that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay, maybe 2 more until we come to the model. Did you perform clinical evaluation, including post-market clinical follow-up, as requested by Annex 1 of the MDR?
Also a very interesting question. We are currently in the preclinical state. We have finished our animal study, and now it's going to the clinics. Actually, last Friday, the first patient signed, so it's getting very hot for us. But yeah, I think the post-market surveillance will be an issue, and this is why also we have a company as well founded. It's a spin-off that will take over this part.
Okay, interesting.
So for the hospital on-site production, it's a bit different because we have Article 5, and it says we have to review and get some clinical experience, and of course we have to consider that experience for the next models. So it's a bit different from approval.
Okay, so let's finish looking at the model here again. Does it have the same haptics and geometry as a real aorta? Arteries have a high compliance. It can hard to be emulated.
So it is our first use case. So we just chose one technology, and of course this is not flexible. It's not comparable with the aortic feeling, tactile in the way that you would find, like you have the thickness of the wall of 2 millimeters for a real aortic arch. But what comes close is the dimension, and it helps for the orientation of the surgeon. That's the focus.
Okay. Thank you very much to the three of you.